Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 1.2, roll call. Commissioner Vanderheiden,
Present.
Chairwoman Garvin, present. Commissioner Wagner,
Present.
Commissioner Lewis,
Present.
Commissioner Williams,
Present.
Commissioner Flores,
Present.
Vice Chair McCullough,
Present.
and Commissioner White.
Present.
Great. We have a quorum. Item 1.3, public forum. This is the portion of the meeting devoted to the public. The public may comment on any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. Items not included on this agenda cannot be acted upon other than to place them on a future agenda. If you wish to comment, you can do so in person at the meeting or use the raise your hand feature in Zoom, *9 if you're participating via phone. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please avoid repetition. The chair may, at her discretion, hold comments until the second public forum at the end of the meeting. Public comments submitted prior to 4 p.m. the day of the meeting will be provided to the Planning Commission and added to the record, but will not be read during the live meeting. Any public input received after 4 p.m. the day of the meeting will be included in the record, but may not reach commission members before action is taken. Is there any public input? If you are speaking at the podium, again, please print your name on the sheet provided. Is there anybody on Zoom? All right. Item 1.4, approval of tonight's agenda. Can I have a motion? Commissioner Flores.
I move to approve today's agenda.
Right. Can I get a second? Vice Chair McCullough.
I'll second that.
And can we please vote? Commissioner Vanderheiden. Commissioner Wagner.
Yes.
Vice Chair McCullough.
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
And Commissioner Flores.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So that passes 7-1. Item 1.5, approval. I'm sorry, 7-0. Apologize. Thank you. Item 1.5, approval of last month's minutes. Can I have a motion? Commissioner Wagner.
I'll move to approve last month's Planning Commission meeting minutes.
Thank you. And Commissioner Lewis.
I'll second.
Great. And let's vote. Commissioner Vanderheiden.
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner.
Yes.
Vice Chair McCullough.
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Because I wasn't it last month.
Commissioner Flores.
Yes.
And Chair Garvin. I vote yes. That passes 6-1. All right. Moving on to agenda item 2 for staff reports. 2.1, discussion and possible action regarding a waiver application submitted, WVR 26001, submitted by HG Construction on behalf of the Fernley Improvement Club to waive parking and landscaping requirements for a site located at 10 North Center Street in Commercial C2 Zoning District. APN 020-015-05.
Oh, she hasn't.
I drive past this every day. It's in bad shape.
You got this.
All right, Lisa Warner, Associate Planner for the record. Um, The location, so this waiver application is waiver 26001 for the Fernley Arts Center, which is located at 10 North Center Street, which is generally located at the intersection of Center Street and Main Street. The background on this site and building, the building was constructed in 1940. It's always been substandard, well, it's currently substandard development and a substandard site. Its established use is the Fernley Arts Center. ACES, which is the Art Culture Event Squad, holds multiple events at this site throughout the year. The site suffered fire damage in 2024, and the applicant has applied for a building permit to repair the fire damage, which then triggers the improvements to meet current development code. It is eligible for the waiver because it is located in that downtown area in between the railroad tracks to the north, Cedar Street to the south, Dallas Lane and Miller Lane to the west, and Hardy Lane to the east. So it is within that area. As they are requesting a parking, landscaping, and trash enclosures, the waiver of those three items. It meets finding number 1 as the lot is legally non-conforming. Finding number 2 is met. The waiver does not impair the purpose of the zoning district. The C2 zoning district is intended to create and preserve areas for businesses that provide a variety of retail and other commercial services in concentrated centers that serve the local community or tourist-oriented uses adjacent to I-80 and downtown Fernley. Finding number 3 is met as it does not impact any fire, building, or health codes. Finding number 4 is met. It's consistent with the master plan as the site is zoned commercial 2. All neighboring parcels are zoned commercial 2. The site is located in the waiver area of Main Street. And it meets finding number 5 as the waiver is necessary to preserve a substantial property right enjoyed by the surrounding properties. And it meets this finding because since the waiver is offered to everyone within that area, it needs to have that right as does its neighbors. In conclusion, granting of the waiver request for parking, landscaping, and trash enclosures will allow the applicant to move forward with their building permit. There is a right to appeal as long as it is done before May 26th. And I have a recommended motion. Is that something that you guys can see, or do I need to read that? Okay,
It's in our packet too.
okay, perfect.
All right. Commissioner Wagner.
I don't have a question. I do have a disclosure. As you might not have known, I am actually a board member of the Fernley Improvement Club. I was approached 7 years to take over that building, politely declined, offered my support to Mr. Yulehorn however I possibly could, and helped him reform our board. So although I have not been active in this project, I do think it conflicts me off this vote. I would say I've worked with HC Construction. This whole waiver has my full support, but I will not be voting on this item tonight.
Commissioner Flores.
Yeah, I had a question about the item of the activities. Besides maybe pouring art shows where they display art, are there sales going on in this building or future use of the building? It's a commercial area, is that correct?
It is zoned commercial. I am not sure what all kinds of events the ACEs put on, but they do put on many events throughout the year.
Okay,
I believe they're a nonprofit as well.
okay.
So
I have a second question. Now, it says that there's no regular parking available there within the lot. It's not allowed. There's not, so that means there's street parking only available to that venue?
there is street parking available, which doesn't count towards our parking standards in current development code. There is parking on Center Street,
Yeah.
just in front of the building.
Okay.
But it's not striped and labeled as actual parking, but you can tell that there is parking that's done there when there's an event.
But it's not forbidden by the city.
No, because that's what they're requesting to waive, is us requiring
Okay.
the appropriate amount of parking spaces.
Okay. Now, as far as events, are these, they're not regularly scheduled, they're intermittent probably? Do we know that? Because if you have regular events, that's kind of without regular parking, I don't know.
And it kind of depends on how you mean regular, if it's something once a week or if
Yeah,
it's
let's
more
say-
like, I don't believe so. They put on items like music, margaritas and murals.
Okay. So maybe, yeah.
Other events like that, yeah, that are
Yeah.
periodic throughout the year.
Yeah, I wouldn't have any problem if it's once a month, but if it's every weekend, that's maybe parking would be more a requirement. But that's what I need to know. Thank you
Right.
very much.
You're welcome.
Vice Chair McCullough.
So is this building, has it been being used since the fire, or this building's been completely shut down?
It's been shut down.
Okay, so it hasn't been inhabited at all, waiting on this
No.
remodel? Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, can I get a motion? Commissioner Lewis.
I move to approve the waiver associated with WVR 2601, subject to the condition of approval 1 through 18, findings WVR 01 through WVR 05 for the waiver have been met, and the facts supporting these findings are included in the staff report.
Hey, thank you. Can I have a second? Vice Chair McCullough.
I'll second.
Great. And let's vote. Commissioner Vanderheiden
Yes.
and Commissioner Wagner is abstaining.
Abstaining. Yep.
Vice Chair McCullough.
Yes.
Chair Garvin, I vote yes. Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams. And Commissioner Flores.
Yes.
Okay, that passes 6-1. Agenda 3, general business 3.1, a presentation by Wood Rogers to review the current and future traffic demands of Fernley roadways.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Michelle Rambo, Planning Director for the record. A couple meetings ago, we were requested to do some traffic research on Farm District Road and come up with some numbers for you. At the same time, we had a traffic demand model being done by Wood Rogers, so I thought that we could just have them come and do their presentation for you. So I'm going to turn it over to Bryant and with Wood Rogers.
Okay. Oh, there it goes. Okay, Brian Gamp, Project Manager for the City of Fernley Corridor Action Plan for the record. So the intent of today's overview is to give a update as to what we've been doing on the Corridor Action Plan and specifically and particularly relevant to the Planning Commission, a new tool that has been developed under this study that is at your disposal for helping inform planning decisions and making some informed choices around transportation. So what we're looking to touch on today is give you an overview of the study purpose, goals, and objectives. Just to give you a real high level view of what the study is all about. And then we'll dive into the travel demand model, which is a first for the city of Fernley, and then some initial takeaways that we've already started to see from the results coming out of this model, and then finish up with update on schedule and what to expect for next steps. So the corridor action plan is focused on the 3 NDOT facilities through town. Farm District Road, Main Street, and 95A. So this study is, as I believe you're aware, is partially funded by NDOT. And so the recommendations coming out of here are generally focused on these 3 facilities. However, to make informed recommendations for these facilities, we expanded out the effort to include the development of the city's first travel demand model. So the overall study purpose, the intent is to develop 3 corridor action plans coinciding with those 3 corridors to provide decision makers with a guide that will define future transportation needs along these 3 corridors, reduce traffic delays, improve connectivity, and improve safety. So the intent here is to provide agencies with a workable and cost-effective transportation plan to address interim and long-term needs. So when we talk about this plan, we're talking about a 20-year horizon, identifying where existing problems are and identifying new problems that haven't hit yet. And this is a planning study. So when it comes to transportation improvements, we're really early in the project development life cycle. This is where we identify potential future projects for further evaluation, design, construction, that kind of thing. Some of the goals and objectives of this study: define acceptable levels of access and mobility, determine future multimodal transportation system needs. We're going to be talking a lot about vehicular capacity today, but it is a multimodal study, so we are looking at bike and ped connectivity as well in an all the above approach. Identifying traffic operational deficiencies and providing strategies to address those. And of course, we're engaging stakeholders and the public along the way. In fact, we had a public meeting early last fall to get some initial input from the public. And just to give you a feel for what's involved in our bucket of work here, that it does include engaging agencies and the public, but we spent a lot of time on existing conditions analysis because part of that effort is developing that travel demand model, which I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about today. Then applying that in our task number 4, developing transportation alternatives and evaluating recommendations to come up with a suite of improvements that can then potentially be funded to help alleviate traffic issues both now and in the future. And of course, our ultimate deliverable here is a planning document or a report. So before we dive into all the good stuff about our study, I did just want to recognize that there's multiple planning studies that are occurring concurrently in the city of Fernley, trying to address all the growth going on. There's the area plans that are being worked on, the infrastructure plan, and as well as our study. Our study is focused on the transportation element of the NDOT facilities. So some of our recommendations can be absorbed into the infrastructure plan, and some of the work being done in the area plans is being taken into consideration in our study. And we're communicating with those consultants as well. All this eventually feeds into the City of Fernley master plan. So I just wanted to acknowledge a lot of concurrency, but there's a lot of work to coordinate concurrent efforts. And as part of that engagement piece, we are working with a technical advisory committee made up of multiple agencies. So there's a fair amount of collaboration going on here as we move things forward. So just wanted to acknowledge that as well. Okay, well, let's get into the traffic talk, which there's probably only a few of us in the room that get excited about it. I know Lauren does. And we'll talk about the city's first travel demand model. So what is a travel demand model? It's a computational framework to estimate trips within a region or a study area. And it allows planners to forecast future travel behavior based on infrastructure, population, employment, land use, and even policy elements. And we have underlined that term behavior because that's one of the things that's a little bit different about this model versus more traditional approaches. It's predictive. And travel demand models typically consist of off-the-shelf applications. These are used all across the country. Cities that are at an MPO status, 50,000 or above in population, have to have a regional transportation plan. They typically have a travel demand model that informs the development of that regional transportation plan. So a little early for the size of Fernley, but I think the point is Fernley's getting there, so you might as well have the tools at your disposal now so you can make some good decisions as you move forward. So some of the answers that a travel demand model answers are how many trips may be made on a particular segment of roadway, where will people travel? So not just how many trips, but where are they going to and from? Some models will help predict what mode of transportation is used, what routes will they take, and how much daily traffic will a particular segment carry under different potential scenarios. So you could change land uses and then answer these same questions. So what's different about a travel demand model versus kind of a typical traffic analysis that we're used to in the planning world? Travel demand model is more regional or a citywide scale, whereas a traditional traffic impact study looks at more corridors and intersections in terms of scale. The inputs are a little bit different. Travel demand model looks at land use, economic data, I mentioned even policy, whereas a traditional traffic analysis looks at traffic counts, signal timings, much more granular information. And similarly, the outputs are different. A model is going to give you outputs in terms of volumes, or we'll talk about ADTs today. It may be travel mode or distribution throughout a transportation network, where a traditional traffic analysis looks at the metrics like delay or level of service, which we're all used to. And so with those, you can run different what-if scenarios. In a travel demand model, you can play what-if scenarios with land use, different connections on the roadway network, which we'll touch on towards the end here. Whereas a traditional traffic analysis, you're usually playing with scenarios around different traffic counts, signal timing, trip generation on a site, elements like that. So different scale. So where does that fit into the overall process? In a typical transportation planning analysis like we're doing, you evaluate the existing transportation performance, you estimate what future traffic conditions are going to look like, and then applying that information, you identify where there's bottlenecks and limitations. And then you develop solutions to address those in some form of an implementation plan. That second kind of box right there, estimating future traffic conditions, that's where this tool, this travel demand model is key. It helps us really look at a much larger scale throughout the community, estimating those future traffic conditions, so then we can look at potential solutions at an intersection level based on those volumes. So the process for developing one of these models in a really simplified kind of 3-bullet version is you create and calibrate an existing year model, including the existing roadways, use existing traffic counts to calibrate one of these models. And then you prepare the future scenario, which uses inputs like what's the land use in the future going to look like. So think about those area plans that you've been working on. Some of that information helps inform what that future land use might look like. Population totals, employment totals, these are inputs on that future scenario, as well as a third bullet there, which is establishing what that future roadway network looks like. So it's relatively straightforward to estimate traffic just using things like population and employment. But when you start changing what the roadway network looks like and adding new roads into the network, that really mixes things up. And that's the power of a model like this. So looking at that second effort of preparing that future 2050 outlook, some of the assumptions done for the Fernley model, infill projects are generally implemented, so you kind of assume a lot of the infill projects are done before you start adding a ton of growth on the outside. For the City of Fernley's model and working with your staff, we identified the benefit of actually using 2 potential growth rates, a moderate and a high growth scenario. Especially given the amount of intensity that's going on, this helps us kind of bookend or play some different scenarios of analysis. So under the moderate growth scenario in 2050, that model assumes population count of about 50,000 people in Fernley, or kind of doubling the population. The high growth scenario assumes 75,000, or tripling the current population. And similar with employment growth, a couple different totals there playing with moderate and high growth. So you have a couple different model scenarios that we can test different improvements with and different outcomes. The third piece of that, I mentioned the 2050 roadway network is the other thing that's important. So one of the important efforts that we did as part of the study is try to identify which new roadway connections are reasonably likely to be constructed and online by the year 2050. And so we worked with city staff. We conducted a developer workshop to get some input on that, and landed on about 5 different new roadway connections that are assumed to be in place by 2050. Doesn't mean there aren't others that are being discussed, and we'll talk about those here in a few minutes. But those roadway assumptions are the Nevada Pacific Parkway, which we all know is an active project, connections through Fernley 5 and Clemens Ranch, as well as a connection over through Red Hawk Ranch, and then some form of a connection in the South Area Plan. It was kind of speculative where that might be, but in talking with your South Area Plan consultant, there was a lot of agreement that something likely is going to be constructed down in that area. So we included that as well, even though it doesn't carry a ton of volume. Okay, before we get into the good stuff and start looking at some outputs, just to make sure we're all on the same page, we'll talk about AADTs a lot, use that term, just to make sure we're all on the same page. That's average annual daily traffic. So if you look at your volume of traffic and average it out over 365 days a year, that's your AADT. Okay, so these plots are pretty much a little bit cleaned up, but pretty much directly out of your travel demand model. The one on the left is your existing conditions under a no build, no new roadway connection scenario, using 2022 as the base year. We use that as a base year because there's plenty of available traffic data for that year. So it gives us a good foundation. Once the model starts replicating really pretty well against those volume counts, then we use that to develop your future 2050 model. So a couple places that I'll pick on throughout these, kind of Main Street north of the roundabout. If you look at 2022, you're around 27,000 cars per day, or AADT. In 2050, if nothing else is built, the demand shows you'd be pretty close to 45,000. So not quite doubling, but quite a bit. Again, this is assuming no other roadway connections are built. The other location I'll pick on a little bit through here is Main Street west of downtown by the Mouse Hole, because that's another key spot. 2022, you're around 12 to just over 12,000 ADT there. And then projecting that out to 2050, it balloons up to over 22,000. So that's kind of a base case. If we compare that to the 2050 model with those new roadway connections, those 5 new roadway connections in place under a moderate and high growth scenario, those numbers change because obviously traffic is now moving differently around the network. Pick on our spot north of the roundabout there, that 44-some thousand vehicles per day now then drops under a moderate scenario to just under 32,000. And similarly in the high growth scenario, a little bit more, around 38,000. Going west of downtown at the Mouse Hole, we're looking at 21,000 there, a little bit more, around 24,000 under the high growth scenario. And I'll give you some better ways to consume this here in a second. So picking on those key locations, focusing on the Main Street north of the roundabout. In the 2022, or kind of our existing condition, you can kind of see how the volumes jump up from the 26,000 to over 44 under the 2050 no build. You construct some of those projects, particularly Nevada Pacific Parkway. Some of that traffic gets moved over. It gets better at 31,000 under the moderate scenario, and in 2050, and over 38,000 on the high growth scenario. So one of the quick and easy takeaways here is if you think if there's concerns about traffic at the roundabout today, Nevada Pacific Parkway helps. It doesn't alleviate it. So it's good, but it doesn't solve the problem. So we're going to have to develop, solutions there, even with Nevada Pacific Parkway in place. So kind of that other spot we've been talking about at the Mouse Hole, west of town. A little over 12,000 in the 2022 base case, 2050 no build that shoots up to over 22,000. And with some of those other connections in there, that area is not as sensitive. It doesn't benefit from those 5 new roadway connections as much. It only improves a little bit, getting down to 21, a little over 21,000, both in moderate and high growth scenarios. So another quick takeaway there is the Mouse Hole is going to be a problem under almost every future scenario. And that being a long-term project, probably need to get started on that sooner rather than later, because that's going to take a long time to get improvements at a location like that in place. And I'll pick on one other spot here for a similar comparison. This is 95A, just south of Main Street in downtown, 2022 base case, 7,700 vehicles a day. At the 2050 no build, we're over 18,000. Here, some of those new connections in place, particularly say like the Red Hawk one, really do have an impact. Under the 2050 moderate scenario, that drops below 10,000 ADT. Under the high growth scenario, it pops up to just over 13,000 ADT. So kind of similar to the roundabout in that some of those new connections definitely help, but they don't eliminate congestion that's there today. So a couple of initial takeaways from this travel demand model. As mentioned, number one there, Nevada Pacific Parkway to US 50A helps but does not solve roundabout congestion. The Mouse Hole is going to be a constraint under any future scenario. And then we know there's been a lot of questions around Farm District Road. So pulling some data from that one, what we're seeing in the model is that Farm District Road south of the roundabout may need to be widened, but just for a short distance. Maybe down to Cottonwood. And so if we were looking at improvements to, or say replacing the roundabout with a traditional intersection, it may make sense to make some improvements further down Farm District Road to incorporate the capacity that's needed there. But that's another one of our kind of high level takeaways. All right, I mentioned new connection alternatives. There's a few that we've tested in here that have been floating around out there. Wanted to share some of those results really quick with you as well. We mentioned the 2050 background roadway network. We added these 5 new connections. There's other connections that have been talked about and there's some interest in. So we've run some scenarios there that we'll share with you. One of those is Stock Lane and extending that across the canal. And running that in the travel demand model, we see under the moderate high growth rates that it attracts volumes a little over 11,000 under moderate, almost 14,000 under the high growth rate, which is pretty good attraction. Now, looking to see what that does to, say, Main Street west of 95A to see if it does some alleviation there in the downtown area. The impact is nominal. So we see the volumes go down from 14,600, this is the high growth scenario, to just over 14,000. So it helps a little bit, doesn't pull a ton of traffic away from the downtown area, although it does attract a fair amount of trips on its own. The Wadsworth Connector is another one that's been discussed or identified quite a bit. This is the connection from the southwest area, working its way all the way around to a connection to I-80 west of town. Under the moderate growth scenario, we see about just under 6,000 ADT on that new roadway, which isn't a ton. Under the high growth scenario, which concentrates a lot more development or it assumes a lot more building in that southwest area, that number jumps up quite a bit to just over 12,000. So we're starting to see some traffic on that piece of the connector. But then testing that as to, well, what does that do for our Mouse Hole problem? Without the connector, we're at 21,000 ADT in the high growth scenario. With the connector, drops to 18. Either way, you're exceeding the capacity of a 2-lane road. So another one of those situations of it helps, doesn't solve the problem. And another one that was identified through our developer workshops was an extension of Cottonwood over to Miller. And apparently that's been talked about, or it's been on the books at some point in the past that we weren't aware of. So we wanted to include that in the analysis. That little extension there would attract a fair amount of traffic, a little over 8,000 on the moderate growth, just under 10,000 on the high growth. Testing to see if that helps alleviate traffic in the 95A Main Street intersection downtown. Doesn't help a whole lot in that part of the world, because with and without the extension, it only changed things by about 500 cars. So kind of similar to Stock Lane. It attracts a fair amount of vehicles, but it doesn't solve some of the other problems in the network. Okay, so those are some of our initial findings, applying the city's new travel demand model tool. Where we are with the study is we're now taking those future projections, and we're doing what's called operations analysis on some of your key NDOT intersections in town, like the roundabout, and identifying some improvements to address what the future demand is going to be. We're knee deep in that right now. We'll be bringing those forth here in the next month or so, and then bring those forward to the public as well and getting some input. Some of that effort's probably going to bleed off a little bit past June, but we're looking to get what those recommendations are here fairly shortly. So immediate next steps, as I mentioned, doing the traffic operations analysis using those future forecasts, developing alternatives. We'll get some feedback from our technical advisory committee. Those are our stakeholders as well as the public, and we'll put together the draft final report. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Commissioner Flores.
Yeah, I'm curious about your baselines here, because I used to work in this field a little bit. I used to use transit analysis zones for a big metropolitan area.
Mhm.
And they broke it down into smaller communities, obviously, but there were still 100,000, that's much larger than this. But the question I have for you is the baseline, what do you use? Did you use adjusted census data from decennial adjustment? Did you use, what was used as a baseline? I'm curious.
Baseline in terms of
Well,
population?
what was the assumption of the initial start where you projected forward?
It's a good question.
Because
So-
you could use a current permits, occupancy so far and things like that. But did you use census data that was updated to the mid-century?
I believe we would have, for the 2022 base year, we would have used the population and employment data that was readily available for that time frame. Now, I'd have to ask our modelers if they used as a source, if that was demographer data or if that was more like ACS.
Okay. So you use some kind of baseline here because in some reports in the past that they've underestimated growth a little bit, and the report was pretty old. It was like 2015, and they projected only like 2.1 or something like that. But
Oh, gotcha.
it grew a lot more than that, obviously. I was just curious about. Thank you for your information. Thank you.
You bet.
Commissioner Wagner.
Yeah, thank you for the data. I think those of us who have lived here for a long year and drive on the roads daily, like there's models and then there's what we witness every day on the way here. Cottonwood's having a major issue at their school. Traffic is backed up on Cottonwood like it's a major issue for all residents around that area. And that just happened, 10 minutes ago. So we're seeing stuff like that daily. These numbers honestly scare me. I'm trying not to be a doomsday person, but like even if all of this stuff is completed as far as roadways, and even if it's a moderate, all I see is those numbers increasing. It's not like it's even going to alleviate some of the traffic going into the roundabout or, I'm concerned about the Cottonwood 95A intersection and kids going to high school. We can do an average daily, but the reality is the half hour as kids are commuting to the school and the half hours as parents are picking kids up to come home from school is a nightmare at that intersection. And 5 years ago, we were in advanced discussions with NDOT about creating some kind of solution there. And we're here 5 years later, and I don't know if those discussions have gone anywhere. So those are just comments like, how do we look at this optimistically and believe that we should be bringing more people in, believe that the traffic issues that we have right now would get any better?
Right. And to your point about looking at dailies versus kind of peak at the intersections, that's where the operations analysis that we're working on now comes into play. And Cottonwood 95A is one of those intersections. So we have what we call turning movement counts there. We'll apply growth rates that we see out of the model to those turning movement counts, and then look at what sort of improvements are needed to make that operate adequately.
And do you think NDOT would accept those improvements and be willing to invest in those improvements? Or are those just going to be kind of theoretically what we should do, and when funding becomes available, maybe something will get done?
Well, funding's the magic bullet, right? And the intent behind the study is you first have to have a plan. What are you trying to fund? And on one of those slides, I showed one of the outcomes of this is a phased implementation plan. We have to identify priorities and identify where those priorities are, put a dollar sign to it, and then we've got a plan to go shop. Whether that's trying to get funding through NDOT or whether that's trying to go get grant funding elsewhere, you have to know what the plan is first. Where are you going to spend those first dollars? The reality is, in almost every one of these studies we do, the level of improvements that we identify are usually beyond what people can generally get funded. So you do the best you can with the type of funding that you can get a hold of.
Vice Chair McCullough.
So I've said it before at these meetings, and I'm going to say it again. As a planning commissioner, the only thing, not the only thing, but the main thing that I hear from people in town is, why are we letting so many more developments come here when we have such a horrible traffic problem? That is the main complaint that I hear. Traffic problem, traffic problem. So I know that you're not approving these developments, but it really does need to be considered. We're putting a huge burden on our existing residents with all this traffic that we're bringing in just by bringing in more people. So I just wanted to get that out there. Second of all, speaking of traffic at the high school, I think I sub, and I think that we have the only school, probably in the United States, that has a 55-mile-an-hour speed zone. So who do we talk to? And my husband was a teacher at that high school for 30 years. He tried and tried to get a school zone set in front of that high school because, as Cody mentioned, daily there are accidents in front of that school with high school students driving, because we know that they don't pay attention. Who do we talk to while we're doing this traffic study? Who do we talk to about getting a school zone in front of that high school?
Obviously, that is under the purview of NDOT since it's their facility. I can say that we've conducted a safety analysis as part of this, part of our study, looking at the existing conditions. Like you're saying, we saw that there are clusters of crashes by the school. So we're looking to make some safety recommendations. That will be one that we can take a look at and include in the study. And then I am not part of the work, but I do know that there's some safe routes to school studies that are being done by Western Nevada Safe Routes to School for the Fernley area. That would be another venue to get those type of improvement recommendations in, and try to carry those forward with NDOT. That'll, if it's in an NDOT sanctioned study, that definitely helps carry a little bit of weight, and we can certainly talk with District 2 personnel about that concern and some similar recommendations.
Commissioner Lewis.
Can we go back a couple of steps in your presentation? I just want to look at the farm district one, basically the traffic numbers that are projected for farm district. So if I'm looking at that one, doesn't show it, and this one does not show farm district. So these numbers don't reflect the traffic on farm district. It only goes to Cottonwood. So we don't know, but then you went forward and had numbers for farm district. So I'm just trying to better understand.
Sure. We have numbers for all of Farm District. It's included in the model. I purposely kind of cropped these outputs to not show the eastern edge of Farm District Road just for readability's sake. But there are numbers there. The general takeaway, and this was kind of in that one slide with the summary, we do see some pressure for capacity on Farm District Road, kind of from Cottonwood north. Once you get south, it starts tapering off. I can't give you the exact segment where it really starts dropping off, but can say that once you get further east on Farm District Road, you're still well within a two-lane roadway. Typical capacities from at least an ADT standpoint.
Right. Well, we have a bunch of subdivisions going in out there. So that's really where my question came out. I'm the one that requested this for us to start talking about this now before it turns into this, because nobody will be able to move in a car. You'll just have to sit in your driveway all day because you can't go anywhere. But you did have a slide up on there that showed Farm District. It was Farm District, you had something like 26,000, and then it's been 50 years, which most of us may or may not be here, but 26,000, 26 years. Oh, 2050, I'm sorry.
So one of these, you're saying now?
2655, and then it was projected to go to 44,000. How is Farm District Road gonna hold 44,000 cars a day?
Are you talking about this particular slide here? Is that the 44?
Those are the two that yeah. Well, that's coming from the roundabout.
Yeah, that would be on the north side of the roundabout.
Okay.
So not the south side. You can kind of see the little cluster there around the roundabout. So to the left, the 16,000, and to the right, the 19,000. That would be the very north end of Farm District Road by the roundabout. And so when you're talking about 16 to 19,000, that does exceed typical capacity of a two-lane road. As mentioned, kind of between Cottonwood and the roundabout location, you are looking at some widening improvements needed on Farm District Road.
So this is just a model based off of our current traffic. Did any of the accounts of daily traffic get taken into account based on the current planned subdivisions?
So the projections that come out of a travel demand model are all based on developing out the land uses. So all the residential uses along Farm District Road get built out at least to a 2050 level.
Okay.
It doesn't mean full build out of the entire Fernley community.
Right. Okay. I think I better understand. Thank you.
Mhm.
And your presentation was great. It's very scary, though.
Understood.
Yes, I think I'm more interested to see what the peak times are. And I was hoping to see that to find where the traffic trends are. And I'm assuming that the traditional was also used in the TDM, or is that?
That fits into kind of this next phase when we talk about what we call operations analysis.
Yeah.
That's looking at, say, the roundabout location or the Main Street 95A intersection downtown, looking at those peak hours and then what is needed to address those peak hours. So we start by looking at future daily volumes to develop growth rates on each individual piece of roadway through town. This is just a sampling. And then you apply those growth rates to those peak hour volumes to see how much larger they're likely to get. So I think that gets to what you're talking about.
And when you talk about employment numbers, does that include not just people that live and work here, but people that just work here if they don't live here?
Yes, to some degree. So the base for this model is the RTC Washoe model. So they allowed Fernley to use a copy of theirs and then build on it and get more granular. So you have that connection over to Washoe County and some of that traffic back and forth. Now, they're separated enough that it's not ideal to get those projections back and forth because they're connected by a single roadway. So the accuracy on that goes down a little bit when you've got a piece that's kind of on an island out here in the model. Try not to get too technical here.
okay.
So it is accounted for to some degree to have that back and forth of people that, work here but may live in Reno or their spouse does or vice versa.
And what's the generally accepted margin of error? Like, because obviously it can't be exact. So
Right.
what do you like,
There-
what do you allow? What's the allotment?
So good question. So we apply what's called, the NDOT has established traffic forecasting guidelines, and we apply those guidelines and you select some of your major backbone roadways, and what you're shooting for is a 5% on several of those. Doesn't mean some won't be outside of that, but if you've taken across the whole, then that's kind of what you're targeting for.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Commissioner Flores?
Yeah, I just want to address Commissioner McQuiller's point about the school. I agree that it's a very dangerous situation there. I've gone past it a lot. So one of the things that maybe we should look at is for the kids making a right-hand turn onto Alt 95, that maybe we can put in a merging lane about 200 feet, because, that's one of the things that they're coming in this direction. Mostly they're going to go north. So a merging lane might alleviate some of the accidents, and you don't have to do a whole rigmarole with the NDOT. You can just do it on the right of way of that's part of the city of Fernley. I'm just saying, because you only need an alteration or access permit for NDOT in that case. You don't need a full production of it. So I would say, that I think that would help, because making the left-hand turn into the school is a much shorter turn, but trying to merge, making the right turn coming out of it is a bit hazardous. The vehicles are moving at high speeds, and the kids maybe have misjudged it. So maybe a 200 or 300 long lane, maybe that would help, a merging lane.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we're deviating from the presentation.
Okay.
But thank you. So you'll be presenting this when you get the second part of this study together, and when you present it to the stakeholders / public, is there going to be opportunity for the public to give their suggestions, even if it's, crazy?
Of course. So we have 3 public outreach touch points as part of this. We had the first one, which was, tell us where the problems are kind of thing. We're starting the study, to give us the big basket of issues and opportunities. That's next public outreach touch point will be, here are draft recommendations. Give us your thoughts on these, please, and, and your feedback. And then a third touch point would be availability of the final document and any comments within there.
And is that getting through, or is that being published through the city, like through the City of Fernley website, Michelle?
Yeah, we'll run it through our usual social media, website, reader board, all the things that we normally do.
Perfect. Commissioner Vanderheiden.
Last question.
Hmm.
Once the model is built out, I think it's kind of like spurred from the initial request for this. We get the development projects in front of us. Hey, this development's going to produce X number of daily trips in and out of this, this new SF6 development.
Mhm.
Is this something you can get as granular, like, hey, Planning Commission, right now this large swath of land is RR5. If it were to switch to SF6, here are the daily, plug that into the model, compute. Here's where that added traffic will go throughout Fernley. Is that something we can, as the city of Fernley, include in staff reports? Does this model solve for that?
It does, assuming that the development is large enough. You don't want to get down to a parcel by parcel. But, if you're under your example, a large swath of land, it changes land use. You're going to have a completely different type of traffic coming out of there. Yes, you can code that in there, run some different scenarios, depending on the intensity of that. And you can even do what's called a link analysis to see where is that traffic generally going. Are we gonna, by changing that, are we gonna see a shift of trips from using this routing versus a different routing? That's some of what you can analyze.
All right, I think we've punched you enough. So we appreciate the
You bet. Happy
presentation.
to
It
do
was
it.
really helpful.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to item 3.2, presentation from Mindy Elliott from Summit Government Affairs regarding Nevada Assembly Bill 540, signed into law in 2025.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Michelle Rambo, Planning Director for the record. Sorry. So as mentioned, this was a new law that was put into effect. There's been a lot of questions from staff and other members of the development community. So we thought we would have our legislative representative give us a little rundown of what this requires or does not require us to do. So I'm going to turn it over to Mindy. She should be on Zoom.
I should be. Do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Do you see me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna, can I share my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's, do you see that? Perfect.
Give us a second. Okay, try again. Share and see if that works this time.
Let me go back. Escape. Go back. Zoom. Video. Share screen.
Are we seeing it, Kim? There it is. Okay.
Got it?
Can you make it bigger?
It's full screen on my end.
Okay, it's good now.
You good? Okay, great. Well, good evening, Chairwoman Garvin and members of the Fernley Planning Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. My name is Mindy Elliott, and I am with Summit Government Affairs. And as mentioned, I am your lobbyist. And tonight, I'm going to provide an overview of Assembly Bill 540. Discuss the legislative intent behind the bill. I actually participated in the working group that helped draft the bill during the interim session in 2024, and a review how the program is structured and outline what it could mean specifically for the city of Fernley. And we'll also discuss opportunities, risks, and possible next step for council consideration. AB 540 was enacted during the 2025 Nevada legislative session in response to growing concerns over housing affordability and workforce housing shortages across the state. Governor Lombardo put together a task force which helped create this legislation, which first off, it created statewide attainable housing framework, which is intended to encourage the development of housing options for middle income and workforce populations. I want to stress, this really was about attainable housing for working Nevadans. The bill is specifically designed to serve households earning up to approximately 150% of AMI, or area median income, which is a segment of the population that often does not qualify for traditional affordable housing programs, but still struggles to afford market rate housing. The legislation also establishes a state housing fund and focuses heavily on increasing housing supply through public-private partnerships and local government collaboration. One of the key features of AB 540 is the creation of the state-supported funding opportunities for housing development projects. However, the legislation is structured to require matching investment from developers, ensuring that both public and private sectors share responsibility and financial participation. The bill also creates an attainable housing council, which will likely oversee funding recommendations, policy guidance, and implementation standards. Importantly, the legislation encourages active participation from local governments, cities, so that cities can support projects through land use planning, permitting, efficiencies, infrastructure support, and other local incentives. The overall goal is to create a collaborative framework where state resources, local support, and private development work together to increase attainable housing inventory. Oops, I went the wrong way. Make sure I'm going the right way. How it works. There it goes. In practice, AB 540 operates as a partnership model. The state provides financial incentives or funding assistance to qualifying housing developments, and the local governments help facilitate projects by supporting zoning, permitting, infrastructure coordination, or identifying appropriate sites. Developers are then responsible for constructing and operating the housing projects while meeting affordability requirements established under the program. Projects must comply with eligibility standards related to income thresholds and affordability targets. Ultimately, the legislation is intended to create a scalable public-private partnership model that increases housing production while allowing local jurisdictions flexibility and implementation. And I think this is really important because the first stop that they're going to come to is they're going to come to the Planning Commission and they're going to start talking about their projects. And they're going to start talking about the applications that are being made at the state level. The strengths, the addresses workforce housing gap. First, the legislation directly addresses the workforce housing gap affecting many Nevada communities. This includes teachers, healthcare workers, public safety personnel, industrial employees, and other middle-income households. Second, the bill leverages private investment rather than relying solely on public funding, which could potentially expand the number of projects that can be delivered. Another important strength is the emphasis on increasing housing supply. Many housing challenges stem from a lack of inventory, and this legislation attempts to address that issue directly. The bill also provides implementation flexibility, allowing local governments to tailor participation based on local priorities and capacity. Finally, the legislation received broad bipartisan support, which may improve long-term program stability and funding continuity. So let's talk about the limitations and risks. While the legislation creates the opportunities, there are also important limitations and risks to consider. One major issue is that infrastructure constraints still exist. Housing development cannot occur effectively without adequate roads, which we just talked about, water, sewer, drainage, and public services. The success of the program is also heavily dependent on local implementation. Communities that are proactive and prepared will likely be more competitive for projects and funding opportunities. Another consideration is that developers must participate, and of course, it's always voluntary, right? They don't have to build these types of projects. If market conditions, construction costs, or financing challenges remain difficult, participation levels could be lower than anticipated. Additionally, housing development timelines are inherently long-term, and I mean long-term. I've been doing involved in housing since 1991, and it doesn't happen overnight, meaning the impacts of AB 540 may actually take several years to materialize. Finally, because eligibility extends to a relatively broad income range, there is some concern that program benefits could become diluted or less targeted toward the households with the greatest needs. So why does it matter for Fernley? Well, we are already talking about rapid population growth. AB 540 is particularly relevant because the community continues to experience significant population and employment growth. Fernley's proximity to TRIC and other regional employment hubs has increased demand for workforce housing options. Many employees working in the region are seeking housing that is attainable, but may not qualify for traditional affordable housing assistance. Many employees working in the region are seeking housing that is attainable. And of course, this legislation may create opportunities for Fernley to access state-level funding and attract development partnerships that align with the city's growth objectives. Importantly, early engagement could allow the city to proactively guide where and how attainable housing development occurs rather than reacting to proposals after the fact. Oops, there we go. Area for potential development. When considering implementation opportunities, there are several areas within Fernley that may warrant evaluation. US 50 corridor may provide opportunities for mixed use or higher density workforce housing projects with strong transportation access. Industrial adjacent housing could also help reduce community pressures while supporting the regional workforce connected to industrial logistics employment. Downtown infill opportunities may support revitalization goals while utilizing existing infrastructure more efficiently. Additionally, northern expansion areas may present long-term development opportunities depending on infrastructure capacity and future growth planning. These examples are intended as starting points for discussion and would ultimately require additional planning analysis, infrastructure review, and community input. So what are we looking at from the Planning Commission and Council? To position Fernley for potential participation under 540, there are several actions that the council, we're going to be talking to the council a couple of weeks and that they may consider. So I wanted to let you know what I'm going to be presenting to them. First, identifying priority housing parcels, which could help establish a clear framework for future discussions with developers and state agencies. The second, the city may consider evaluating opportunities to support expedited permitting or streamline review process for qualifying attainable housing projects. Third, exploring infrastructure funding strategies will likely be essential, particularly where utility or transportation improvements may be needed to support growth. Finally, continued engagement with developers, regional stakeholders, and state housing representatives will be important as implementation guidelines and funding programs continue to evolve. I think that as we move forward, we're already seeing, for instance, there is a fund that the city can access if they waive sewer connections for projects that the Planning Commission is reviewing. The challenge that we have, it's a finite amount of funding that's available. It's $20 million statewide. There is a lot of discussion about there needs to be, rural and urban needs, both north, south, east, west, need to have access to these funds. So as AB 540, the applications are just becoming available at the Housing Division for the developers that might be interested in developing projects in the city of Fernley utilizing AB 540 funding. So for us, it's going to be building blocks as the implementation starts to roll out. And with that, I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Mindy. Commissioner Flores?
Yeah, I had the question. I presume this housing is all not for private ownership. This is apartment units people would rent.
No, this is no, it's actually the opposite. There is an opportunity for first-time home buyers. In fact, Nevada Rural Housing is going to have down payment assistance. There's down payment assistance built into this project, as well as multifamily. It's because they recognize it's gonna take a combination of both SFRs as well as multifamily. But the multifamily uniqueness to that is that this is for workforce housing, so they actually increase the AMI to 150%. We talked about 200%, but we settled on 150% AMI to qualify for these programs.
And a second question I have, none of these are presumed to be subsidized housing, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so there's no subsidized housing in here. Okay, thank you.
Because there's already federal programs for that. We have LIHTC and, we have the tax credit programs already in place for 80% of median or less, or 60%.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wagner?
Thank you for the presentation. I kind of have a higher level, I guess, philosophical question. At the state legislative level, we're kind of approaching another session here. It feels like a lot of efforts and money have been dumped into the housing part of this. And I get that affordability of housing is a huge issue in our state right now. We've approved a lot of small lot, multifamily type projects to try to improve that. And it just seems like the prices in Fernley continue to rise. It's like we haven't really alleviated the cost burden on people by continuing to increase the supply. Would our state legislature, like, when do they realize that maybe the more important areas to invest in are the infrastructure? Like, it feels like our roads and our sewer systems and all those things can't keep up if we just keep investing in affordable housing. Is there a balance that you see our state legislature hitting in this upcoming session, or how can we kind of have a voice at the table in that?
Well, one of the pieces of AB 540, there is a $20 million infrastructure reimbursement or a partial reimbursement to the local jurisdictions. But the local jurisdictions need to apply for it once the funds developer comes to the city of Fernley, comes to you. They are going to ask for a waiver or a partial waiver of a sewer connection or sidewalk, whatever that might be. Then at that point, the city will then apply to the state for reimbursement through the Nevada Housing Division for a portion or of whatever that fee would have been paid by the developer in order to help lower the cost of the project. It's de minimis as it relates to the amount that's actually needed. You're absolutely right. It's a start. At least we were able to bring it to the attention of the legislative body that this is an issue. And so hopefully as we move forward, we'll continue to, we're already talking about that we need to ask for some additional funding during the next biennium.
So if the costs are decreased to the developer, how is it ensured that those cost savings are actually passed down to the people who would reside in those areas?
And I think that that's where the partnership comes in between. It really is a partnership between the municipality and that developer. It was designed so that there is oversight by either the planning commission or the city council, so that those developers are at the table the whole time, and so is the city, right? So that we as the citizens, right, can ensure that we do have a benefit of the development costs. There's also an opportunity. They're looking at land trusts right now that the land would be donated by the jurisdiction. It would go into a land trust. So the land would be held by a nonprofit, and then the developer would build single family residences on this land. So that would lower the cost of entry to those potential buyers of those homes. We're trying to get outside the box a little bit of what this might look like. And you'll see during this next legislative session that housing's still going to be a large, long, and probably it's going to take 120 days to finalize what the bill looks like. No different than AB 540, but there'll be a lot of discussion around housing.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
And I will make a commitment to you as we're going through the Chairwoman Garvin I'll make the commitment, because I haven't really come to the Planning Commission I think I've ever come to the Planning Commission, but I will make the commitment as we're going through the session, and I'm coming to the council meeting. I'm providing those reports of the bills. As these bills start to become more robust, I'll come and I'll make a presentation during probably either mid midway through the session to all of you so that you kind of have an idea of what we're all talking about. I'll make that commitment to you now.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, um, there you go.
Sorry.
All right. Anything else? All right. Well, we appreciate your presentation, Mindy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Yes. At this time, I'm going to call a 10-minute break, just to get up and stretch our legs. We'll be back in 10 minutes. meeting. Agenda item 4, public hearings. Item 4.1, discussion and possible action regarding Bill number 385 associated with PD 05-06 MOD, a major modification to the handbook associated with Friendly 5 plan development requested by Scott Berg to modify 1, the proposed arterial roadway connection from the northern boundary of the development to US Highway 50, 2, adding a new section to the handbook to establish design standards and requirements for the arterial roadway connection, and 3, revising condition 4.K to modify the timing requirement for construction of the roadway connection, along with other clarifying revisions. The subject site is generally located on both the north and south sides of Farm District Road, approximately 800 linear feet east of its intersection with Jessica Lane.
Thank you for that introduction, Commissioner Garvan. Just give it a second till the presentation comes up. Oh. That one's next. Perfect. Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Tristan Rodriguez, Senior Planner for the record. The item before you is Agenda Item 4.1, Bill 385, associated with PD 0506 mod. It is a major modification to the Friendly 5 Plan Development Handbook requested by Scott Burge. The request includes modifications related to the future arterial roadway connection to US Highway 50A, the addition of a new handbook section establishing roadway design standards, and revisions to Condition 4K to modify the timing requirements associated with the construction of the roadway connection. The Friendly 5 plan development was originally approved in 2006 and consists of approximately 260 acres located on both the north and south sides of Farm District, approximately 800 feet east of Jessica Lane. The original approval included a future arterial roadway connection from the northern boundary of the development to US Highway 50A. Villages 1 and 2 have already been recorded, recorded final subdivision maps, and additional development phases are approaching the original roadway timing trigger established under Condition 4K. As part of the original Friendly 5 approval, Condition 4K required construction of the future arterial roadway connection to the northern boundary of the development to US Highway 50A. The condition tied roadway construction to the development phasing and specifically required the roadway connection upon recordation of the 151st lot north of Farm District Road. The original condition also anticipated city coordination involving right-of-way or easement acquisition associated with the future connection area. The applicant is requesting 3 primary modifications to the Friendly 5 Planned Development Handbook. First, modifications related to the future arterial roadway connection to US Highway 50A. Second, the addition of a new section, 4.1.3, establishing roadway design standards and implementation procedures. And third, revisions to Condition 4K to modify the timing requirement associated with the construction of the roadway connection. Under the original condition, the roadway connection was required upon recordation of the 151st lot north of Farm District Road. The proposed modification instead ties the construction of the roadway connection to the first certificate of occupancy within villages 4 or 5 south of Farm District Road. At the time of original approval, the land necessary for the roadway connection remained under federal ownership, and the city did not yet control the future right-of-way area. Development of the Friendly Five development has continued incrementally over time, including recordation of villages 1 and 2, while the city worked through the federal acquisition process. In November of 2025, the city completed the R&PP acquisition process, allowing the roadway design process to move forward. However, recordation of the subdivision map containing the 151st lot is now approaching, and the applicant has requested modifications to align roadway timing with the updated traffic study. As part of the modification request, the applicant prepared an updated traffic impact study in early 2026 to reevaluate the original roadway timing requirement. The study concluded that the future roadway connection is no longer warranted at the 151st lot thresholds, and that the existing Farm District Road access points are projected to adequately serve the development until approximately 70% build-outs. The updated study recommends tying construction of the roadway connection to occupancy within villages 4 and 5, while still maintaining the requirement for the future road connection to US Highway 50. The primary modification to condition 4K involves revising the timing requirement associated with the construction of the future roadway connection. Again, it was required at that 151st lot thresholds. The proposed modification instead ties construction to villages 4 and 5 south of Farm District Road. And as I mentioned previously, the road requirement does not go away. The applicant is still required to make that connection to US 50. The request also includes the addition of a new section, 4.1.3, to the Plan Development Handbook, establishing roadway design standards and implementation requirements for the interim arterial connector. The interim roadway section includes 2 12-foot travel lanes, 1 8-foot shared use path, and an interim roadway median configuration. The roadway must be designed consistent with the updated traffic impact study, City of Fernley standards, and applicable agency requirements. The proposed section 4.1.3 establishes the implementation framework associated with the future roadway connection. The developer will be required to prepare and submit roadway design plans for city review and approval, complete right-of-way dedication, and obtain necessary NDOT permits. The developer remains responsible for roadway design and construction costs, while the completed roadway will ultimately be dedicated and maintained by the City of Fernley. The proposed language also establishes a potential reimbursement framework associated with eligible roadway construction costs. Any reimbursement would remain subject to future agreements, proportionate share analyses, annual receipt of funds, and applicable law. So recommendations and decisions on plan development modifications are based on considerations of several criteria outlined in FMC. The required findings include consistency with the master plan, consistency with the master plan, compatibility with surrounding land uses, and public noticing. The proposed modification does not alter the approved land use pattern, densities, or overall development layout within the Friendly 5 Plan Development Handbook. Instead, the request modifies the timing and implementation framework associated with the previous approved roadway connection while maintaining the intent of the original approval. Additionally, the request is limited to roadway timing, design standards, and implementation procedures, and does not modify the approved residential development pattern or surrounding land use relationships. Finally, public notice has been provided, and the applicant has been provided in accordance with Nevada revised statutes. Staff recommends approval, and the recommended motion is outlined on the screen. If the Planning Commission is unable to meet one or more of the required findings, alternate motion language for denial has also been provided as shown on the screen. This concludes my presentation. The applicant team is also present, and they have a detailed presentation that they would like to go over. And at this time, I will pass it over to them.
Good evening, Derek Kirkland, Wood Rogers for the record. I'll go ahead and try not to duplicate too much there. I think Tristan did a great job, and just kind of point out a few additional things. I think we covered this. So just as an update, so we've completed about 127 lots approximately. There's 50 currently in mapping, which should be recorded here soon, and then 50 lots that are currently in design, which would leave about 287 lots remaining in Friendly 5, which was a 514 lot tentative map. A couple of the things I'll point out in the current conditions, obviously the 151st lot we talked about was when that road would be triggered, which we do have a final map. There are basically the backbone infrastructure for those lots that include the 151st lot are already underway, and the map is in to record, so they can start construction on those houses. The other thing I'll point out here is that the two parcels, and I guess this is not a great map to show, but basically the blue line is Friendly 5. And then between the blue line and north to US 50 is a large parcel that was previously owned by BOR and BLM, which the city has recently gone through that process to acquire that. And so that's basically where that road is and kind of the timing issue that we'll talk about here in a minute. Because that is an arterial street, and I think basically the whole arterial street from basically the canal north to US 50, we've dedicated a right of way that's about 100 feet wide, which would accommodate a 4-lane road in the future. Friendly 5 is through the existing subdivision where they've constructed the lots, have built 2 of those lanes, and so basically through all of Friendly 5 will be 2 lanes. The outside 2 lanes, or the inside 2 lanes, I should say. The future 4-lane road would be built by other developments as that need arises, but we have maintained that 100-foot right-of-way, and what we're proposing even going north to 50 would be to dedicate a 100-foot right-of-way for full build-out eventually. In the current condition 4K, basically was identified in the comprehensive plan that would be a regional connection, and so the way the condition 4K is done right now is while we constructed it the 151st lot, the city would also be required per condition 4K to reimburse the developer for 100% of those construction costs. And then the last one is that where really the timing issue comes in is if that right of way north of Friendly 5 was not, if the developer was not able to acquire that right of way from BOR, then there's language that basically exempts the developer from building that roadway at all, and basically says that this condition would go away. So that's really where the timing comes in, and I'll get to that on this slide. So really the lands bill was approved in 2014. And then through, obviously took a while to get through that process. The city actually started the land transfer process with BOR in about 2018. And had to go through environmental and all kinds of hoops that the federal government makes you go through to get that property. And then in 2023 is when the first final map was recorded. And then in August 2024, there was a subsequent map recorded for 52 lots. The conversation on that right of way and the road actually started around 2024 and continued into 2025 as the developer realized that we were getting close. At some point we're going to trigger that 151st lot. And the design and construction of a roadway like that typically takes around 15 to 18 months. By the time you get through design, permitting, deal with NDOT's right of way, and then actually building that roadway. And so those discussions started almost 2 years ago. Really, the timing issue came down to the city was smack dab in the middle of this process with BOR, BLM to get the land transfer. So there was no real way for the developer to acquire that right of way while that process was in limbo. And so they had to basically wait until the process was completed. Which honestly, there was a lot of uncertainty. We had COVID in the middle of there. And so it's not really the fault of anybody. It's just a matter of just the uncertainty of the federal government process and just the timing issues there. And so when the city finally finished that in November 2025, obviously the developer couldn't stop moving with maps as they have funding tied up and they want to keep moving forward, and Fernley needs housing and the demand for those housing is really there. They didn't want to stop. And so we kind of met with the city and we talked about ways to do this. And so the best way to do it was for us to look at the traffic report Obviously, the old Friendly 5 traffic report was outdated, and so looking at the new conditions, and we wanted to see if there was a way for us to shift the design and construction of that roadway, not get out of that condition, but just shift it and push it to a later phase so that we could keep moving forward with Friendly 5. And now that the city owns that land, we can actually get the right of way and actually build that roadway. So that basically led us to March, which is where we have a final map now for the 151st lot, which that backbone, the roadways, the grading is already underway for those. And then obviously the PD modification, we talked about the best way to do that. And so we worked really closely with city staff, city attorney, and outside legal counsel for the city in terms of how to structure the language. And so one of the benefits to the city through all of this was really we took out those two conditions, and I'll kind of back up here. So the two parts of that condition that are now removed are as part of this proposal would be that the construction cost. So the city is no longer going to be on the hook for 100% of the construction cost. That will be a shared cost now, which I think is a benefit to the city. And then the clause about if it's denied by a BOR and being exempt, not building the roadway, that's all completely removed from this. And so now there's a clear path forward on how to build the roadway, and it gives the developer the ability to start design of that with a clear path forward, which still provides that roadway extension for the city, which is going to be a critical piece to the overall project and to the city as a whole. So basically and we do have Lauren here tonight with GCW, who did the updated traffic report for this. We spent quite a bit of time. Obviously, there's some things we had to work with NDOT on there as well. But generally what we found is that really villages 1 through 3, so basically all the villages on the north side of Farm District Road and even Village 6 do not have an impact on existing conditions today. And so the Friendly 5 could move forward with those 4 villages without triggering the need for that roadway extension. It's really when we get into villages 4 and 5 that really triggers that need, which is about 70%. And so that's why you'll see our proposal is tied, basically based on the new traffic report, is tied to kind of shifting that to the village 4 or 5, close of certificate of occupancy for the first residents in village 4 and 5. And we did validate that it's still only 2 lanes that are required for that roadway at this time, based on the Friendly 5. And so you'll see in your packet, but I do have some shots up here. Generally, the highlighted sections are kind of the key pieces we added. And one of the things that we worked really close with the outside legal counsel on was the language on how we can get cost share. So it takes the city's responsibility of 100% reimbursement and puts in the language about potential cost share, which is really it's Friendly 5 that's going to pay their fair share of the roadway based on the need that was generated in the new traffic report. And then the other percentage of the project, the city with this language, the city is giving the developer the opportunity at the developer's cost to basically develop some sort of cost share methodology that we could propose back. That is, other developments in the area come on and they're using that roadway as a benefit, that Friendly 5 has a way to get reimbursed from those other developments. So it takes the city's responsibility out of it and puts it back onto the development. And then the other one, it also gives us, obviously the city could sell that property that roadway goes through. When Friendly 5 builds that roadway, it obviously becomes a financial benefit to the city selling those parcels. And so if the city were to sell those parcels and that development gets the benefit of that road, then there's another clause in here that allows the city to basically, the new owner of the land would then have to share into that responsibility of that roadway. And then again, just outlining some language about some of the limitations, but it basically removes the city's liability of 100% reimbursement and pushes that back on to not only the Friendly 5 developer, but gives the Friendly 5 developer an option to recoup some costs as development comes on and benefits from that roadway as well. As Tristan mentioned too, the other issue with the PD right now is that we talk about the roadway, but there was never an alignment shown. There was never really any design standards. So basically we took the language we're also putting in condition 4K and actually put it in the PD so that it's clear, there's clear design standards. And the way we did work with the city engineer and public works to figure out what this roadway would look like. So we've already invested some design time to kind of figure this out to get to this point. But generally, we would build 2 lanes on one side. That way, if future utilities need to come in, they would basically go into the side of the roadway that's not built. So we're not ripping up existing asphalt to put in utilities that we don't know what we need yet because we don't know what development plans look like north of us. So all that's already been contemplated, put into the PD. That allows the Fernley 5 developer to move forward at this time, committing dollars to design the roadway, knowing that there's a clear process. The city understands what the developer is going to do. Everybody's on the same page. And again, we spent a lot of time with city staff and legal counsel to basically come up with all this language. I think we've seen some of this. We are proposing the multi-use path, just mainly keeping that bike ped connection to US 50. And then as development comes on either side of the roadway, whether the shared use path stays or it switches to sidewalks and bike lanes could happen at a later date and without impacting future road design. So just a quick overview. We're changing the 151st lot to villages 4 or 5 with the first residents. 2 12-foot travel lanes will remain, but we're changing the bike lanes to an 8-foot shared use path. Instead of the city being on the hook for 100% of construction reimbursement, there is now the Fernley 5 developers agreed to cost share in that. And also the city has agreed to continue to work with the Fernley 5 developer to develop cost share measures for other developments that come on in the area and use that road as a benefit. And again, we just went over the clarifying design standards in the plan development. So it's super clear, we can move forward. So with this, our next steps are to, once the PD amendment's approved, is we will move forward with starting design. We anticipate, road like this probably about 4 months. Obviously we submit that design to the city. There's some review there. Any updates we need to make is about a 2-month process. And then obviously we got to get through the NDOT permitting because we'll be tying into their right away at US 50, which takes a little bit of time. And then once all that's approved and the city issues a construction easement, and we actually build the road, would be about another 6 to 8 months. And so that would allow the Fernley 5 developer to basically start design right away on the roadway, move forward. And then by the time we get to villages 4 and 5, that roadway is now ready to go in and there's no more timing issue. So with that, again, we do have representatives of the Fernley 5 development here tonight, as well as Lauren Chilson if there's specific traffic questions. But with that, I'll conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Flores.
Yeah, I noticed now because in the language it said that you can build village section number 6 without building the connector to US 50. I'm correct about that, right? It wasn't clear before, but now it is. So you can build about everything except 4 and 5 and still not be required to connect to US 50. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And that's based on Derek Kirkland Wood Rogers. Yeah, that is correct. Based on the most recent traffic study, is basically it's really once we get into that village 4 and 5 connection. And I'm happy to have Lauren come up and address that further too.
That's fine. But really, because what can happen is that you can actually build out those sections and leave those 2 out indefinitely, and you never have to build that road connection. Am I right? Because you're not required anywhere if we change the document that way. So maybe you decide to leave it fallow and pretty much for a long time. And the traffic will spill over into Farm District Road. There won't be an exit through that point until you connect to US 50. So all of that development will stream out into Farm District Road. Am I not correct?
Derek Kirkland Wood Rogers. So we did work with the city attorney on basically updating this. And so there is, in the last sentence you can see on the screen there, it says, in no case shall construction of the roadway be deferred beyond a point at which existing access points no longer provide adequate capacity as determined by a traffic impact assessment. So that was specific language the city attorney put in there so that, that couldn't happen. Obviously, Fernley 5 is moving forward with houses and they don't want to stop. So I don't think that'd be the case. And I think there is some protections for that.
Okay. Is it possible that, are you able to sell your rights to phase 4 and 5?
Derek Kirkland Wood Rogers, anybody can sell the project at any point. And that's why it's important that part of the issue right now is it's been such this gray area
Okay.
That there was no timing, there was no language about what happens if this or that, or if we can't get the right of way, does the condition just go away? Then what happens? So I think we've worked with the city really hard to try to clarify that. So theoretically, yes, they could sell that if they wanted to, but then whoever buys it is still going to be subject to all these conditions in the PD, which is why we clarified that.
One last question. I believe US 52 does not have a center median in that area where the connection would be. Am I correct about that?
Derek Kirkland Wood Rogers. So let's see if I can pull this up. So US 50 in the section has an existing high T. So I don't know if you've seen the high T to nowhere out there.
Yeah.
So
okay.
NDOT already built it. So we actually, with this proposed alignment, we would be tying into that existing high T.
Okay. That's good news. Thank you.
Commissioner Wagner.
We've been up, Jenny and I and Angela have been up here for 10 years, and negotiating a deal like this feels like it's a very different thing than we've ever dealt with. A couple questions for staff. This idea of reimbursing developers for roads like this, obviously this was approved in 2006. This isn't standard practice for us anymore, is it? This is just something.
Aaron Morrison, city attorney. No, it is definitely not standard practice.
So we're dealing with something that was passed in 2006, and
I don't know the facts behind why it was negotiated the way it was,
Okay.
and so I can't really speak as to why it ended up this way. But no, that would not be a normal procedure.
Okay. And then a high T, we're talking about you can take a left out of it across incoming traffic, kind of like out of the out-of-town park soccer fields where you can take a left. Okay, so that answers that question. Another city question, the land to the north that the city acquired, are there limitations of who that can be sold to and what that can be used for?
Michelle Rambo, Planning Director. At the moment, yes, there are, it's public purpose and open space or something along those lines. Lydia can give us the exact wording.
Lydia, I'll take acting city manager. That's recreation and public purpose at the moment.
There is a way to, if we wanted to in the future for any reason, to go back and get reversionary interest, which would change that to allow for development. But as of right now, it's open space.
Okay, so it sounds like this idea of another development coming in there to kind of share some of the costs and reimburse the city would be kind of far-fetched right now, but could happen eventually. Would that be a right way to think about it?
Yeah, I don't know if far-fetched is a good word, but as of right now, there are no plans for that land to develop. That could change if somebody comes in and makes the right pitch.
And Aaron Morrison, city attorney, I think the big barrier, I suppose, to that occurring would be that reversionary interest cost. But obviously, if a developer or the city was willing to pay that reversionary interest cost, that could change its use at that point in time.
All right, last thing, and Derek, you're going to have to tell me. I agree with Commissioner Flores that this deal of tying it to Village 4 or 5 just seems a little bit too vague. For me, timing condition, like a 2-year, this needs to be constructed, feels a lot more concrete. Would that be something the developers willing to do at whatever time interval you think would be appropriate?
This is Derek Kirkland Wood Rogers. So obviously with these, we have to tie it to something that, obviously was technically viable. And so I'm going to let Lauren kind of talk about why we selected that.
Good evening, Lauren Chilson with GCW, Principal Traffic Engineer. Again, the traffic study from the original version is 20 years old. Things are different than they were 20 years ago, not only in the way that we perform traffic studies, but in the way they were negotiated back to that original PUD, in the way that traffic has actually developed, in the way that the roadway system is changing over time. And so we wanted to establish a trigger point that was technically based, something that could be defended should we ever need to defend it, any of us for that matter. And so the reason 4 and 5 are different than villages 1, 2, 3, and 6 is that those villages have to make a left turn out of a roadway that's a 4-way intersection. And so those left turn movements from villages 4 and 5 to turn left to go west on Farm District would incur a different type of traffic delay, more intense delay than any other element of that project, which would be primarily right turns out from the north and left turns back in without unimpeded. And so when you look at it from a technical perspective, it's really clear that 4 and 5 are very different than just some generic number of homes. If we're at 100, 127 units right now, and the trigger's at 151, does 30 units really make any difference when they're making right turns out? No, it simply doesn't. But when we start making left turns out against Farm District Road traffic, it does make a difference. And so we wanted to find a technical basis for it. I'm well aware of the overall broad traffic issues, conditions, the roundabout, Nevada Pacific Parkway, all of those things. But I can say with confidence that villages 1, 2, 3, and 6 are not going to be the significant problem. 4 and 5 is where things change. And so it's tied to that rather than some time frame, which none of us control. Can control markets change, factors like right-of-ways and easements and dedications and BOR and government processes all change around us and we can't control them. But we can certainly make sure that improvements go in by the time they're needed based on city's level of service policy, and that's what we're achieving.
I appreciate the technical explanation. I just, on the record, I'm going to say that my worry in approving this is that something is going to be done to find our way around those conditions, and this roadway is never going to get built. But I hope I'm wrong on that.
If I may, thank you. That's certainly not the intent. The place that we're in is we're through no fault or control of any of ours. We're at a place in time where we're bumping up against 151st lot. We were not able to complete the roadway collectively between the city and the developer. And we can tell that where we sit right now, 30 more units doesn't make any difference. So we're simply trying to extend the time so that we can record an additional map or 2 or 3 while we work out the roadway process. I understand your concern. I respect what you're saying, but that's not the intent of what we're trying to do.
Thank you. Vice Chair McCullough.
Okay, excuse me. I too am very concerned about this extension. So my question, so Village 6 doesn't turn left onto Farm District? What's that little green road?
Again, Lauren Chilson, GCW, it does turn left, but it does not have any opposing traffic from villages 1, 2, and 3, right? It doesn't, there's no one sitting on the other side of the intersection trying to turn left or right or do something else. So there's much less conflict.
I got it. Okay, I understand that. All right, so let's just say that we did deny this request. What would be the delay? How much would it delay this project for you guys if we did say, you know what, we're just really not comfortable with this and we want that 151st house, we want that road built?
Again,
What kind of a delay are we looking at?
I may lean on Derek a little bit here too, but we're at the stage right now where the tentative map for the 151st lot has been submitted, correct? And we have a process here where we need to design a road, obtain easements, work with the city on the design of that, work through some processes. This, as Derek mentioned, a 15, 18-month process just to figure out how to get this roadway designed. We've got to get a permit out of NDOT. That's an 18-month process. So at the very simplest explanation, 2 years.
Okay, so Village 1 is complete, Village 2 is complete?
Hi, Ken Hendricks, KDH Builders, and one of the owners of the property with my wife. And Hendricks Drive is named after us, and we call it Legacy Trails, just the fact that Legacy Trails is the name of all our grandchildren are on that. So we intend to be here for a while, but going back to your question, if you wouldn't mind repeating it real quick.
I was wondering what the, what kind of delay we're looking at
Yeah, I would say that we're probably looking at about 2 years. It would take us probably a year to get to a point where we would have a design that everybody would agree with, and then we would have to go through the NDOT process, which could be another 12 to 18 months.
Okay. And then explain to me where we are in this phasing. So is Village 1 complete?
Village 1 is complete, Village 2 is complete, and the infrastructure for Village 3 is, well, on the map there, we kind of, we're a little bit off, but Village 1 is complete. Actually, the area that's doesn't have numbered, that is what we call Village 1 now, so it's a little bit different than this map. The area where Village 3 is right now, that is complete, and the area where Village 2 is the infrastructure is now in place and is the map that we're trying to record that is the 101st lot. So when you up there and see V1, that is the portion of the property that is not complete right now.
Okay, so you've got quite a few more houses to build before you get to that 151st lot being completed.
No, we're out of lots now. Where the V2 is, that map is ready to record and is scheduled to be in front of the city council for approval on the 20th. And that is that actually incorporates the 151st lot. And we are out of, all the rest of those houses are built.
Okay. So what if is there like some kind of a compromise where we could say, okay, when you're done with villages 1, 2, and 3, then it can make that road possible?
I think that we could certainly agree to anything on the south side of Farm District Road. If there was a compromise, that would be a decent compromise. There's a terminus right now of Hendricks Drive, right where the numbered lots and where its V2 is, where the numbered lots and the non-numbered lots are. That's where the terminus is right now. In the next 2 final maps that we're going to do, that 4-lane road has to be built all the way to the end of the property to the north where the Hendricks Drive extension starts. And we would definitely want to, get that built in there so that we don't have to build that 4-lane road when we're not building houses alongside it too.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
I mean, I would feel more comfortable with some sort of a compromise like that. I mean, I don't know what you guys think about that, but
We can certainly
kind of my
agree.
thought.
We can certainly agree to something like that. I obviously, financing in this is pretty big, and we are sitting on $13 million of debt on the property right now. And for us to stop right now would would be a huge financial problem.
Well, and I agree, and that's why I'm saying 2 years, that's too long to delay you guys. That's,
Yeah,
you know,
but
that-
yeah, if it would be a good compromise for the city council, we could certainly say that anything before be under construction by the time we get to the south side of Farm District Road would be fine with me.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm so sorry, Commissioner White. I can't see you down there. Did you want to ask any questions or anything?
I don't have specific questions on this one, but thank you.
Okay. All right, I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, we will go ahead and open up to public input. Is there anybody that wishes to come to the podium? Oh,
I have a question. If we were to do a compromise, what will we do? Will we table the motion or would we amend the motion?
it would be an amendment because this is a recommendation of approval to the city council.
And Aaron Morton, city attorney, that's correct. So what you do is you go to recommend, for example, you could do recommend approval with the following amendment and then spell out that amendment. And then we would work on getting that amendment into place and present that recommended amendment to council as part of the original proposal.
Sorry about that, Aaron. Okay, now we'll open it to public input.
Hi, Becky Hallett for the record. I agree with the
before you starting on the south side of the road, because I live off of Farm District Road. And even though their traffic studies or whatever does not, it's a very busy road now and I can hardly get off my street onto Farm District. There's a lot more traffic. And if there's another way out, you know, from up to 50, then it would help relieve some of the traffic that goes by Cottonwood School. Because on the way here tonight, to get into the roundabout, I stopped at Shadow and was in traffic all the way up to the roundabout. And it's not just today, it's every day. It's getting to the point where it's really hard to move through town, you know, to get into town without driving the back roads to get around. So I know that all the traffic studies say that the traffic's not that bad, but to drive in it every day, it is. You sit there 15, 20 minutes before you can go anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public input? Is there anybody on Zoom? Okay. Is there any additional comments, discussion from commissioners? Commissioner Vanderheiden?
I just want to clarify. So as we make this amendment, if we deny this, the road does not get built any faster. It just is our tolerance for risk of if and when it gets built based off of the other developments. So
This is going to the city council. They're the ones that are going to have to approve it. We're
Yeah.
just doing the recommendation.
Yeah.
So,
got it.
Well, I think it will get built faster because we're saying, well, at least what we're proposing is that the road has to be under construction before phase Village 6 gets started. They wanted to do construction at the end of Village 6.
it's
It was
4 and
tied to 4
5.
and 5, but now it's going to be tied to the south side of Farm District.
Yeah, so before any construction is on the south side of Farm District.
So it's our tolerance for, if it takes 16, 18 months to get the road design and built, starting now, it's going to be 16 to 18 months regardless. It's just if they're building these things on the south side of the road as that's being built, or they have to wait to build those. That's just the point I'm trying to get across. Like, they can happen concurrently. So I don't want to, I like the south side proposal, like the proposal, just don't want to tie it up and make it too, like, it's stopping progress and it's not making the road come faster. So just, the south side's a good proposal, but I want to call that out.
Okay. Any other discussion? All
Aaron
right.
Morrison, City Attorney, just very briefly, I don't know if the developer wants to be able to respond on that point.
Madam Chair, if I could, Derek Kirkland with Wood Rogers. So I think, to your point, I think we would still want to tie it to like certificate of occupancy so that Village 6 construction and the road construction could be going concurrently. It's just nobody can move in until the road is completed, which is how the condition is written now with Villages 4 and 5. So I think it would be, we would just ask that we keep it kind of similar so that, yes, they can go concurrently. It's just when somebody moves in and starts adding traffic.
Can I just make sure? So
Yes.
you're asking that the condition is that the roadway is completed before the first certificate of occupancy is issued on the south side of Farm District?
Yep.
Okay, got it.
That works for you.
Is that good? Are you good? Jane? All right, that makes sense.
All right, can I have a motion? Commissioner
Okay.
Wagner.
Based on the analysis presented in the staff report, I move to recommend approval of bill number 385 associated with the Fernley 5 planned unit development to amend the PD handbook including the addition of section 4.1.3 and revisions to condition 4.k to adjust the timing of the required roadway connection to US 50 to be completed by the first certificate of occupancy issued on the south side of Farm District Road in this subdivision.
Vice Chair McCullough?
I second that.
Thank you. All right, let's vote. Commissioner Vanderheiden,
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
Vice Chair McCullough,
Yes.
Chair Garvin votes yes. Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
and Commissioner Flores.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes 7-0. All right, moving on to item 4.2. Discussion and possible action regarding TSM 26001, a tentative subdivision map requested by Fred Altman to allow for 253 townhomes on an approximately 16.88 acre lot zoned MF 30 and located north of Westerland Lane, east of Silver Lace Boulevard, west of 6th Street, and south of US 50 alternate. APN 021-103-61.
Thank you for that introduction, Commissioner Garvan. So staff is requesting a continuance on this item. The continuance request is due to outstanding review items and coordination still underway between the applicant and North Lyon County Fire Protection District.
Is that it? Okay.
Great. We all vote yes on that.
Oh, do we have to officially do
Now
that?
wait.
Flores has.
Commissioner Flores.
I just had a question about the nature of these units. They look like split level apartment units. Most of them, is that what we're talking about? You call them townhouses, but
They are attached townhomes. So
attached
single
house.
family attached homes.
So they're not like, for example, I live in a split level apartment unit that's the merged together. So that doesn't count a single family at all. Only if it has 3 bedrooms. Am I right about that?
I'm sorry, it was difficult to follow you. Can you repeat that?
So single family refers to the number of bedrooms also, or not?
It does not. So it'd be a dwelling unit. Single family, there's one building, one entrance, one family entering that building in that unit.
But it could be two bedrooms only.
Yes, that is correct.
If I may,
Yeah.
Michelle Rambo, Planning Director, these are also not apartment rentals. These are for sale. So
Okay.
these would be purchased.
Okay, that's what I need to.
To move it. Oh, public comment.
Okay, is there any public comment? On Zoom? No? Okay. Commissioner Vanderheiden.
I'll make a motion to continue item 4.2 to next month's meeting.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, let's vote. Commissioner Vanderheiden.
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner.
Yes.
Vice Chair McCullough.
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Flores.
Yes.
And I vote yes. That passes 7-0. Agenda item 5, Chair and Commission items. Would any commissioner like to bring up?
I have 2 really quick. We informed Michelle, but Jenny and I will be probably absent in June due to the high school having their senior scholarship night. So I just wanted to make sure other commissioners will be there. And then the second thing, obviously, data centers have become the center of everyone's attention. I'm still trying to learn about them. I just want to make sure it continues to be front and center for us to try to create some kind of regulations. I know we're watching what Reno does. The Desert Research Institute just published a really good study kind of on what's going on around Nevada. The more information we have and the sooner we're to address that item and create some regulations on them, I think the better that we'd be. And I hope this commission has a say in that process.
Commissioner Flores?
So I just wanted to point out that there's a plan for expansion of the 80 freeway from Reno, but not into Fernley, as you may suspect. It's only to our friendly industrial park area there, and that's it. It's not going to come to Fernley, unfortunately. Just wanted to point that out.
All right. We'll move on to item 6, planning director items.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michelle Rambo, Planning Director for the record. Starting with the city council actions for the April 15th and the May 6th meeting. The April 15th, they did approve the Duffy Road abandonment with the requirement that it remain Duffy Road. So the name will stay. The master plan amendment and zoning map amendment for Mark IV passed and went through. We also discussed the adjacency code. They have some questions about enforcement for a few of things. So we have put that back on the table to redo a few things. And so we'll be bringing that back to you probably in the next few months. On the May 6th meeting, the only thing that we had was a presentation from Mark IV on their progress of their project. As required in their development agreement, they have to give us a report every 2 years. So those were the planning related items for those 2 meetings. General updates. I do want to touch on a few things that we talked about tonight and some relevant information. I do have a scheduled meeting with NDOT next week to discuss future road needs and hopefully get on the radar for some of these things that we will need in the future. We have been talking to them about the Cottonwood 95 intersection. They had proposed what they called a compact roundabout, and we told them we didn't like that. And so they've gone back to the drawing board, and they are coming back hopefully soon with a new proposal. We've also been talking about the speed limit on 95. There's some discussion about, and I forget where it came up. Oh, it goes along with that Cottonwood 95 issue. If they do an expanded, a bigger roundabout, or they do a traffic signal or something that they realize they're going to have to reduce the speed limit. So we've been talking to them about that. So that is a possibility coming down the road. Data center ordinance is in the works, and I'm hoping to have a workshop on that next month. But since you're not going to be here, would you like to move that to July, or do you want to have it anyway?
July.
I think July's good.
I'll answer for him.
July.
Okay, we will push that to July. No problem there. We'll have a workshop with you guys, and then we'll take that to city council and do the same thing, just so that everybody's thoughts get incorporated into that. So that is all I have, unless you have any questions.
Does NDOT just not like Fernley?
Does what?
Does NDOT just not like Fernley?
There's a history.
I mean, I see all these glorious roundabouts in Silver Springs of all places, and they suggest a compact roundabout.
Yeah, there's a history. Part of the problem was that when the NDOT did their 20-year plan, they completely excluded Fernley. So there's no projected road improvements in Fernley for the next 15 years. So we're kind of stuck unless we can convince them to change their plan. Sorry? Well, that is part of why we're having a conversation. And that actually came about, I'll let you know, because I did do a presentation at a APWA, American Public Works Association meeting in Reno that NDOT had several representatives at, and I think I scared them with all of the population proposed, the projections. And so the next day I got a phone call from NDOT wanting to talk. So hopefully this turns out to be a good thing and we get some actual
Yeah, it
progress.
sounds like things are moving, or at least a little bit.
Let's hope. But that is part of the problem. We're not in their 20-year plan, and we won't be at least for another 15 years. So mhm. I can do that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. Let's move on to item 7, public forum. This is the portion of the meeting devoted to the public. If you wish to comment, you can do so in person at the meeting or use the raise your hand feature in Zoom, *9 if you're participating via phone. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please avoid repetition. Is there any public input? Zoom? All right, our next meeting is June 10th at 5 p.m. Meeting adjourned.